This is 5 on 20 News with Pedro Santa Cruz.
And Tammy King, and we're coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It is Tuesday, February 6th. First in local headlines.
Tucson topped the list of distressed Arizona cities in the latest Distressed Communities report, compiled by the Economic Innovation Group. The group used 7 metrics to rank areas distressed, at risk, mid-tier, comfortable, and prosperous. Tucson ranked 91 out of 100, with 100 being most distressed. The report states that 59% of the city's zip codes were distressed and only 8% were found to be prosperous. Tucson shared several qualities with the lowest ranking cities, which included Newark, Buffalo, and Detroit. This included poor minorities separated from the city's most affluent citizens. The report cited the 85714 zip code, where 40% of the population lacks a high school diploma versus 13% nationally. The area code also had more than 41% of its residents not working, a 36% poverty rate, and 50% of the national median income. The 85714 area code is 92% minority. In addition to concentrated poverty and poorly funded schools, Tucson also suffered from one of the worst economies in the U.S., according to the report. At less than $40,000 per year, the city's per capita personal income trailed Metro Phoenix by almost $2,700. Other cities in Arizona fared a lot better in the report. Gilbert ranked as the least distressed among America's 100 largest cities, with no distressed zip codes and 99%, which were considered prosperous. Chandler also did well, ranking 4th overall, with 0 distressed zip codes and 65 considered prosperous. Scottsdale ranked number 10. The report was titled, "White People Still Living the Good Life." Those white people.
Yeah. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey is seeking to reverse an earlier decision that fired a group of tax collectors 2 years ago. Ducey's change of heart came after the Department of Revenue lost $83 million in audit revenue. Ducey wants the agency to hire 25 tax collectors, which he says would generate at least $30 million for the state's general fund. Daniel Scarpinato, a spokesman for Ducey, said that we want to go after bad actors and entities not paying their taxes. Scarpinato, however, sidestepped questions about why Ducey is now reversing his position. In 2015, Ducey's revenue director, David Byrant, was ordered to carry out a widespread firing of collectors and auditors. Byrant was then rewarded with a raise of over $70,000 and was promoted to be director of the Department of Environmental Quality. Since Ducey became governor, he has slashed over 40% of his audit and collection agencies. Last year, Ducey cut corporate auditors from 10 to 6. As a result, corporate audit revenue fell 82% to $6 million compared to $33.6 the year before. Ducey's change of opinion comes as the governor is seeking increased funding for the state's underfunded school system. If the state had been able to claw back the lost $83 million, it would have been able to provide a 2% raise for all teachers in the state. Ducey's office expects to be able to give teachers a 1% raise with the projected $31 million that will come from hiring more staff. This is all part of Ducey's 2018 teacher funding plan dubbed, "Hey, it's better than nothing."
I like that positive attitude. I think you can get a long way with that. I was wondering if you can deduct gambling losses on your taxes. Do you know?
I don't know. I don't do taxes.
That's probably the safest strategy. Now that tax season is here, a nonprofit group is offering free preparation at 7 Tucson area sites. The Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program will help any family that makes up to $66,000 file their taxes for free. They are being funded by the United Way of Tucson and Southern Arizona, Pima County, and Catholic Social Services. Bonnie Bazata, program manager for Pima County's Ending Poverty Now program, says that the tax program is important because it makes sure those who can't afford professional tax preparation pay the taxes they owe, no more and no less. She says that the tax professionals can also make sure that individuals will get any tax credits that they qualify for, such as the Earned Income Tax Credit. All tax preparers are certified by the IRS and will sit down with each taxpayer. The process takes about 20 minutes, as long as taxpayers have all their documents handy. If you need help with your tax preparations, visit one of the following 7 locations listed at unitedwaytucson.org/free tax help. All services are completely free, including griping about having to pay your taxes. Well, that's great. I love complaining.
Yeah, it's free. A Tucson Studio was named the most beautiful Airbnb rental in Arizona, according to Architectural Digest. The magazine named the best Airbnb locations in each state and named the Tucson Studio a, quote, surprising oasis right in the middle of Tucson. The Tucson Studio rents out for $85 a night and features a plunge pool, a beehive fireplace, and a walk-in spa shower, and more. It also comes equipped with coffee, granola bars, fruit, chocolate, and green corn tamales. The studio was also listed in the New York Magazine as one of the best places to stay for a weekend escape in Tucson. Once again, the Trap House on Miracle Mile was snubbed.
You know, I think people misunderstand those friendly rats sometimes. They're very friendly if you get to know them, but better luck next year.
Yeah.
Madagascar Minerals, a vendor at the main gem show in Tucson, reported the theft of over $10,000 worth of petrified wood, tools, precious minerals, and gemstones to the Tucson police. The theft is believed to have occurred between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Saturday morning and took place near Oracle and Speedway. Madagascar Minerals is offering a $1,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest. You see, this is why you should always keep your precious gems and minerals safe and sound where they belong, in your teeth, like rappers Lil Wayne, Nelly, and Mike Jones.
Who?
Mike Jones.
Who?
Mike Jones.
Who's that?
Oh, nice earrings, by the way.
Oh yeah, I got them at the mineral show. Yeah, they're a symbol for, actually I picked caffeine. They're the what kind of symbol?
It looks like the molecular
There we go.
construction. And
Yes.
I wonder if they had any pinky rings of horse tranquilizer.
You probably could find that there. The House Intelligence Committee voted unanimously on Monday to publicly disclose a classified Democratic memo that argues against the competing Republican memo released last week. The original memo, written by Representative Devin Nunes, accused the FBI of abusing their surveillance powers. It states that the FBI used information from the infamous Trump dossier compiled by British spy Christopher Steele. Republicans allege that Steele's work was financially supported by the Democratic National Committee, therefore making it politically biased against Trump. After the committee voted to release the Nunes memo, Donald Trump said that it vindicated him and proved that Russia investigation is politically motivated. However, the Democratic memo allegedly seeks to correct what Democrats say are mischaracterizations in the Nunes memo. It reportedly adds context to actions by the FBI and the Justice Department in obtaining a secret FISA order to wiretap former Trump aide Carter Page in October of 2016. Trump now has 5 days to either make the document public or block its release. If Trump tries to block the release, House rules allow Democrats to seek a closed-door vote of the full House to override the president. With some Republicans arguing for its release, it could set the stage for yet another political battle between the president and Congress. For this battle, Congress plans to introduce a steel cage which was created using $5 billion of taxpayer money. It is all covered in gold, and they are calling it the Gilded Cage. Get it?
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun for you.
A new report from the People's Policy Project found that class is a better predictor of incarceration than race. While the report's conclusions fly in the face of others who say that race predicts the rates of imprisonment, the report does state that institutional racism still drives much of the issue. Researcher Nathaniel Lewis used 4 metrics to analyze the role of race and class in the rates of male incarceration. These metrics were whether or not men aged 24 to 32 years old had ever been to jail, whether these men were jailed after being arrested, whether or not they spent a month in jail or prison, and whether or not they have spent a year in jail or prison. Lewis used data from the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent to Adult Health, known as ADHealth, to draw his conclusions. He found that while class has a large significant effect on the first three outcomes, race does not. However, Lewis found that the fourth category, whether or not the men spent a year in prison, was affected by race. But he still found that class level was stronger than the effect of being white rather than black. The report goes on to show that the U.S. system of incarceration is largely a battle against the poor. However, the report also shows how black Americans have been trapped in a system of continuous poverty, which has translated into higher rates of incarceration. Blacks are about 5 times more likely to spend time in prison than whites. Lewis suggested that one of the best ways to reduce the total prison population would be to embrace social democratic policy that addresses poverty, the education gap, and other class divides. In response to the study, the Justice Department released a statement of one word: nah. You know, I've been to the clink a few times, and I found the best way to avoid jail is by staying away from the dog track.
That's good. That's good advice. Thank you. The Department of Labor's Inspector General is investigating the agency's decision to overturn an Obama-era rule that banned tip pooling. The proposed DOL rule would require employees to pool the tips of workers who make at least the federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour and share them with non-tipped workers. The proposal did not include employees who make less than the federal minimum wage and earn tips to supplement their pay. The Inspector General's announcement comes after the Bloomberg report that stated agency officials ignored an economic impact report that showed workers could lose billions of dollars in tips if the agency overturned the tip pool ban. Critics say that the rule is anti-worker and would allow employers to steal tips earned by their employees. The attorneys general in 17 states sent a letter to the DOL on Monday stating that the rule contradicts centuries-old understanding of how tipping works. The letter also said that the overturn would seriously injure workers and deceive customers. They argue that there's nothing in the proposal that prevents employers from simply pocketing the tips as an additional profit. The group of attorneys generals are ordering that the agency turn over any data that they use to come up with this proposed rule. The DOL says that it will turn over the 2 seasons of Kitchen Nightmares, that's what they used as research.
Here's a tip: eat your vegetables, kids. Ecuador voted to limit presidential terms, sending a blow to President Rafael Correa, who hoped to run for a 3rd term. Correa changed the country's constitution to allow him to run again this year. But voters approved by an almost 2-to-1 margin a measure reinstating the limits. Lenin Moreno, a former protege of Correa, who now leads the opposition, praised the vote as a triumph for Ecuador's democracy. The vote runs counter to similar issues in other South American countries. In Bolivia, a court recently ruled that President Evo Morales could run for a 4th term despite a voter referendum that rejected it. President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela is running for office in an election that opposition leaders consider illegitimate. Also in Honduras, the conservative president Juan Orlando Hernandez recently won a 2nd term after the Supreme Court ruled that a constitutional ban on re-election violated his rights. In Ecuador, Correa won the loyalty of poor Ecuadorians, who received generous health and social programs. However, Correa clashed with the business community, the news media, environmentalists, and indigenous groups as he pushed through measures to increase his power. He also expanded mineral exploration in indigenous communities, earning the ire of country's native peoples. In contrast, the opposition figure Moreno is enjoying a nearly 70% approval rating. Americans have begun to warm to the idea of a presidential term limits. In a poll, Americans said that presidential terms should be limited to 1 year and 3 months.
It's a nice round number.
I think so.
Yeah. An Indiana man is suing the federal government after he was arrested by state police trooper for flashing the cop his middle finger. Mark May gave the finger to troop Mattei Ames after Ames allegedly cut him off in traffic to pull someone else over. Ames then pulled May over and gave him a ticket for provocation, a Class C infraction that carries a fine up to $500. In the lawsuit, May argues that his gesture is covered under the First Amendment protections. His lawyer, Kenneth Falk, argues that Ames had no reason to pull May over and to issue that ticket. May responded that he had one reason, using his middle finger to illustrate the point.
Oh, I get it.
He used one finger, yeah.
He was picking his nose.
Yeah.
In its 7th week of being in theaters, Jumanji, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, once again rose to the top of the box office in sales for the past week. The film has now made over $850 million worldwide. Other board game manufacturers are hoping to cash in on The Rock's success and are pitching him ideas for new board game movies. Some of the pitches include Candyland and the Furious, G.I. Joe and the Hungry Hungry Hippos, and San Andreas 2, Apples to Apples.
I think that's what happens. G.I. Joe becomes a hungry, hungry hippo. Yeah, that's what'll happen to him. Okay.
I see some potential plot problems, but it sounds fun.
Yeah. Well, this is 5 on 20 News. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube account. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for all the latest Creative Tucson news and content. You can also feel free to get in touch with us at info@creativetucson.org. Thanks for watching. Stay creative, Tucson.
And it's nice out there. Get out there and
take a hike.
Oh.
Take a hike. Outside, it's beautiful.
Now I see how you feel.